Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the floating world of Yoshiwara, the old red light district of Edo-era Japan, where shadows stretch long, kimonos rustle like whispers, and courtesans glide through misty streets like living illusions. You're not here as a guest. No, tonight you are one of them, a newcomer, freshly painted and perfumed, just starting to understand what this place really is. It's beautiful, yes, but also quiet in a way that hums with rules. And you probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little community reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your slippers make no sound against the polished wood floor. The air smells of sakura incense, simmered fish, and something fainter beneath it. Maybe face powder, maybe secrets. You've just walked past the Norin curtain into the heart of the tea house. Outside, the city simmers under dusk. But in here, time floats sideways. Everything is slow, deliberate. Even your breath feels like it should arrive on cue. Like a well-rehearsed scene in a stage play you don't remember joining. You tug nervously at your outer kimono, the color of rusted maple leaves. Borrowed, of course. You haven't earned your own yet. The real courtesans glide by in layers of silk heavier than your entire body weight, tied with obi sashes that look like paintings. Some of them give you the faintest nod, the kind that says, yes, we see you. You're new. You'll learn. Around you, lanterns sway gently from the ceiling, casting a reddish hue over everything. They're painted with delicate images, cherry blossoms, cranes, and characters you're still learning to read. You spot a few older girls powdering their necks, leaving a deliberate strip of skin bare in the shape of a W, a gesture meant to mimic vulnerability. In this place, even what you don't cover is a performance. One of the first things you notice is how quiet everything is. No one shouts, no one rushes. Conversations happen behind folding fans or flutter on slips of silk paper. Laughter is rare, and when it comes, it sounds rehearsed. The clients don't want noise. They want softness. They want fantasy. They don't want to be reminded that courtesans eat rice like everyone else, or that they sweat under all that fabric, or that they sometimes get pregnant. Oh yes, that part. You won't hear it talked about during tea ceremonies or strolls through the pleasure gardens, but everyone here knows the unspoken truth. Courtesans, despite their perfectly painted lips and practiced poise, are constantly managing the threat of pregnancy. It hovers over every encounter like the scent of wilted plum blossoms. And believe me, the solutions to that particular problem? Not exactly what your high school health teacher warned you about, but we'll get to those later. For now, you just need to get through your first evening. A matron, her hair shaped into something like a cinnamon bun fortress, beckons you with a flick of her sleeve. You follow, bowing so many times, your neck aches. She tells you to observe. That's your job tonight. Watch, don't speak unless addressed. Smile with your eyes. Keep your posture long and your emotions folded tight like origami. She opens a sliding door and you step into one of the reception rooms. There, across from a client wearing a robe decorated with tigers mid-pounce, sits one of the highest-ranking oiran. She's breathtaking. Her hair is layered with hairpins shaped like dragons and cherry blossoms, her eyebrows plucked and redrawn high on her forehead like a theatrical mask. When she speaks, her words sound like plum wine being poured in slow motion. You don't understand much, but you can tell. She's not just entertaining him. She's guiding him through a script. Every sip of sake, every tilt of her head, every pause is calibrated to sustain the illusion that he's the one in control. Meanwhile, you can tell, she's the only one steering the ship. In the corner, a tiny brazier simmers with sweet potato ash. The scent makes your stomach turn. You haven't eaten since morning, but hunger is common here. Not because there's no food, there is, but because staying slim means staying employed. Some courtesans eat cotton balls soaked in citrus water. You've heard the whispers. Others chew bitter roots to suppress appetite and cycle their monthly bleeding into perfect predictability. That's your first brush with it, the beginning of the strange, subtle science behind what they call Jusan no Jutsu, the 13 arts. Secret methods passed down from courtesan to courtesan, mostly unwritten, all unreliable. You've heard rumors of young girls rubbing pine ash into their thighs after each encounter, or of drinking boiled leaves from the higanbana. Yes, the same flower that blooms over graves. Of course, some scholars today argue about just how effective these methods were. Folk remedies, they say dismissively, placebo at best. But others believe the courtesans, through sheer trial and error, developed an instinctive sense of their own cycles. They had to. Failure meant scandal, or worse, removal. Your eyes drift across the room and you spot another apprentice slipping away through a narrow side corridor. She's clutching a little pouch tied with red twine tucked close to her chest. A charm from a shrine, a secret herbal blend. Something her big sister told her would work if taken with sake under a full moon. You'll never know. Asking is forbidden. The air grows warmer. Somewhere nearby, someone begins playing a shamisen. The music floats into the room like silk thread unspooling in slow motion. You close your eyes briefly just to breathe it in, and that's when a small, sharp voice cuts through the quiet. It's the oiran. She's looking directly at you now. The client, confused, follows her gaze. I remember my first night, she says, her tone smooth but carrying an edge. My knees trembled like I'd swallowed a cricket. The room chuckles, and you do too, though it's forced and hollow. You bow deeply, murmuring apologies, and the matron appears again to escort you out. As the sliding door closes behind you, you hear the oiran add, softly, "She'll learn." They always do. Outside in the hall, you exhale for the first time in what feels like an hour. A bead of sweat slips down your spine beneath all the fabric, and you wonder briefly if you can sneak outside for a whiff of fresh night air without anyone noticing. Spoiler, you can't. You return to your little room, if you can call it that. A straw mat, a thin screen, and a lacquered bowl that still smells faintly of fermented rice. You kneel, remove your hair ornaments, and try not to wince at the growing ache behind your eyes. You've learned a lot already, and tomorrow promises more. More rituals, more rules, and yes, more rumors about what really happens when a courtesan disappears for a week and returns looking pale, thin, and slightly more haunted than before. But that's just your first night. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow someone's going to teach you how to hide a pregnancy with the same grace you'd use to pour a cup of tea. Welcome to Yoshiwara. You wake up to the sound of a distant bell, not quite sure if it's calling you or warning you. Light filters in through a torn paper screen, its edges browned with age, like an old book page curled by time. Your back aches from the thin mat. Your legs are still stiff from last night's endless bowing. And yet, you know, this was the easy part. The moment you rise, the day belongs to the house, not to you. A runner girl peeks in, bows quickly, and mutters that the matron wants you in the dressing room. You don't ask why. You never ask why. You nod, adjust your robe, and pad barefoot down the hall. Every corner smells faintly of face powder, old wood, and simmering rice water. Somewhere nearby, someone is already rehearsing lines of poetry in a sing-song rhythm. The pleasure district doesn't sleep. It naps and shifts. You arrive to find the room already buzzing with quiet motion. Older courtesans sit before small bronze mirrors, painting their faces white with thick rice paste. A few hum softly. One is plucking her eyebrows so precisely it's like she's drawing a map of who she's supposed to be. Another is gently applying red to the corners of her eyes, not for beauty, but to make herself look just a little more tragic. Apparently clients love that. You're still too junior for paint, but you're told to start learning the layers. And oh, there are layers. The first is the underrobe. White and simple, meant to absorb sweat. Then come the decorative layers, each one more elaborate than the last, topped with an uchikake, an outer kimono so heavy you have to learn to lean ever so slightly forward when walking. Otherwise, you'll topple backward like a fallen statue. Courtesans didn't walk so much as glide, but that grace took years of training and bruised knees behind the curtain. It's then that you realize just how heavy everything is. Not just the silk, not just the wig, or the hairpins that feel like weapons stuck in your skull. But the rules, the expectations, the knowledge that even how you stand, how long you hold eye contact, how deeply you bow, means something. This isn't flirting. This is performance art trapped in a cage of formality. A matron notices you struggling with your obi. She tisks softly and steps in, her fingers moving like clockwork to fold and tie the stiff fabric into the proper fan-shaped knot at your back. The knot, by the way, isn't just decoration. It tells people who you are. Low-tier girls tie theirs in front for ease of removal. You're still in the middle, respectable but not untouchable. The highest-ranking oiran wear theirs in back, wide and complex, as if to say, good luck getting past this. The message is clear. Access isn't guaranteed, even if you've paid. Especially if you've paid. You glance at your reflection in the mirror. You barely recognize yourself. That's the point. Later, you shuffle into the etiquette room for your daily lesson. The floor creaks beneath your knees as you sit, back straight, shoulders poised like a crane about to take flight. The instructor begins listing all the things you still do wrong. Your fan opens too wide, your giggle comes too soon, your calligraphy is sloppy. You hold your teacup like a farmer, not a flower. Again, she says over and over. You obey, hands trembling slightly as you try to write a haiku that sounds romantic but not desperate. Meanwhile, another apprentice nearby is being scolded for having cracked heels. A man will notice your feet, the instructor says. Maybe not on the first night, but eventually. And when he does, he'll wonder what else you've neglected. You want to scream. Instead, you bow. This is how the world of the courtesan worked. Every inch of you was expected to be art. But the artistry wasn't meant to liberate. It was meant to contain. Every time you succeeded, it wasn't a victory. It just meant the cage had gotten smaller, more beautiful, more impossible to escape. Still, there are small rebellions. Behind closed doors, some girls eat pickled plums, even though it makes them pucker. Others cut slits in their socks to feel the tatami underfoot. One girl you admire, the one with the dragonfly comb, always hums slightly off-key just to irritate the matron. You love her for it. Historians still argue, you overhear one of the tea-house scribes say that evening, whether oiran had any real power or if it was all just illusion. The other girls around you nod in silence. You all know the answer. It was power, but only the kind that looks like silk from far away and feels like rope up close. That night, while rubbing oil into your sore calves, you hear two senior girls gossiping. Did you hear about Saki? The one who fainted last week? She didn't faint. She missed her cycle. Again, you freeze. She's on the list now, the other says grimly. You know what that means. You don't know exactly, but you understand the tone. There's always a list. It's never written, but if you start skipping meals or smiling too little or looking nauseated in the morning, someone notices, and once they do, you're either sent to the herbalist or to the midwife, or, if the client is important enough, to a retreat outside the city, where you'll come back with different eyes and no explanation. Some don't come back at all. The room goes quiet, even the candlelight seems to hold its breath. One girl sighs and says softly, "Sometimes I think the only safe way to survive here is to never let them touch you." Another chuckles. Good luck with that. The room laughs, softly, sadly. Outside your window, the moon rises over Yoshiwara. The alley below glows with lantern light, and you hear the soft clack of gaita sandals on stone. Somewhere a client recites bad poetry. Somewhere else, someone's crying quietly behind a screen. And yet, there's beauty here. Somehow, despite it all. You remember a line from one of your lessons. Even the most fragile plum blossom survives the snow because it does not pretend the cold isn't real. So you endure. You memorize the rules. You float when you're supposed to. You bow lower than your pride allows. And when no one's watching, you whisper to yourself the truth. I'm still me. That has to be enough. For now. Your feet are sore again, not just from the weight of your borrowed kimono or the relentless posture lessons, but from something deeper, something in your bones that's starting to learn. This life moves in a circle, and not a gentle one. It turns like a spinning lantern, bright on the outside, but making you dizzy if you stare too long. Today begins earlier than usual. The matron wakes you before the sun is up, tapping your shoulder with the end of a rolled scroll like she's snuffing out a candle. You're told to accompany one of the senior oiran on her morning walk through the garden. Watch her posture, watch her pace, the matron mutters. And for heaven's sake, don't trip over your own sleeves again. You bow, not because you feel respectful, but because it's what you do now, and then you're off. Sliding the screen door open, stepping into the mist of morning. The garden is quiet, mist-wrapped, and just a little too perfect. Everything trimmed just so. The stone paths damp with dew. The pond's surface ripples as koi fish break it lazily, disinterested in your presence. Beside you, Lady Wren walks like a poem, one line at a time, no wasted motion. Her sleeves barely move in the wind, her gaze resting somewhere in the distance as though she's halfway through a thought she won't share with you. You follow 2 steps behind, hands folded, eyes lowered. She begins to speak softly, not looking at you. I hated it here for the first 2 years, she says, cried every night. I thought if I learned the rules fast enough, I could escape faster. You wait, unsure if you should reply. I was wrong, she adds with a laugh like dry leaves. You don't escape by running. You escape by mastering the role so well no one sees when you slip out of it. She stops near a plum tree. Its blossoms are still closed, but the scent lingers, sweet and stubborn. She turns to you. Watch, she says, and then she moves, slowly, deliberately, 1 foot in front of the other, toes angled just so. Her hands rise, not like arms, but like the wings of a crane. Her expression softens into something between sorrow and allure. It's mesmerizing. This, she says, pausing mid-pose, is how you survive. Not by fighting the mask, but by wearing it until they forget there's a girl underneath. You nod. You understand more than she knows. Back inside, your lessons continue. Today's focus is on the art of the glance. Not too long, not too short. Look interested, but not eager. Tilt your head just slightly, enough to seem delicate, but not vacant. A courtesan's glance is not just an invitation, it's a chess move. In the next room, another apprentice recites poetry. You recognize the lines. Something about cherry blossoms falling in moonlight. You've heard it a dozen times, but the instructor corrects her tone again. Too hopeful, he says. Make it sound like you already know how it ends. You repeat the lines to yourself later, trying to get it just right. Petals drift, unheld by branch or breeze. Still, they fall where no one sees. Outside, the city is waking up. Vendors call out from side alleys. Fishmongers shout. Somewhere, someone drops a tray of ceramics. But within the tea house, time slows again. Another client has arrived. You're told to pour the tea. This isn't as simple as it sounds. You must kneel without letting your robe shift out of place. You must grip the pot with both hands, pinkies raised, and pour in a perfect spiral, never spilling, never looking too proud of yourself. The client watches you, eyes lazy, mouth twitching like he's trying not to smirk. He's probably a merchant, judging by his calloused hands and overly ornate robe. He doesn't speak much, just lets you pour, then sips with a dramatic sigh. She's new, says the senior oiran beside him. He nods. I can tell. She still looks like she thinks this is temporary. The room chuckles. You want to disappear, but you stay. You always stay. After he leaves, the oiran hands you a folded paper. It's a poem, one written by her in flowing, precise brushstrokes. She places it in your palm like a gift. Learn this by tomorrow, she says. You'll be expected to recite something during your debut. Your debut, the moment when you're no longer just an apprentice, but officially one of them. It's still weeks away, but the pressure is already settling over your shoulders like another layer of silk. You return to your shared room that night exhausted, but sleep won't come, not easily. You lie awake thinking of all the rules you've learned so far. Never eat in front of a client. Never walk faster than a breeze. Never let your hairpins clatter. And never, ever cry in public, even if you find out you're pregnant. Yes, that again. You've heard more now. Hush stories over miso soup. Warnings passed between girls brushing each other's hair. There are methods, they say, ways to prevent. Some tried and true, others less so. One involves ground-up deer antler mixed into a bitter tea. Another requires holding a dried river eel in your mouth during the act. A joke? Possibly, but in Yoshiwara, the line between medicine and myth is always blurred. One girl swears by a paste made of crushed sesame seeds and sake leaves, spread on the lower belly during the full moon. Another insists the key is timing, counting days, listening to the body's rhythms, praying at the Inari shrine every 5th night. Some scholars think the courtesans track their cycles with remarkable accuracy, you overheard a scribe say, better than European physicians of the same period. You believe it. When the stakes are this high, your body becomes your calendar, your diary, your silent prayer. Still, nothing is guaranteed, and if a mistake happens, you think again of Saki. She hasn't been seen for 4 days. No one talks about it. That silence is louder than anything. Before you finally drift off, you whisper the poem you were given. Let my name be plum, blossom, breath, soft and gone before it's said. It lingers in the air like a promise, or maybe a warning. You close your eyes. Outside, the lanterns flicker. Inside, someone turns in their sleep. And somewhere in the house, a girl just like you is sitting upright. Watch in the window, counting days, counting heartbeats, hoping it was just a false alarm. You don't know when it started. Maybe it was after your first time pouring tea without shaking. Or maybe it was when the matron started calling you by your courtesan name instead of your birth name, the one you barely remember anymore. Either way, you're no longer invisible. Clients have started to notice you. Not enough to request your company, not yet. But they look a little longer now, a touch too curious, like they're wondering what kind of fantasy you'll become once you're painted and perfumed properly. You can feel the gaze slide over your skin like the silk you wear, soft but binding. This morning, a folded slip of paper arrives with your breakfast tray. It smells faintly of plum blossoms and sandalwood. You don't have to open it to know what it is. A koibumi, a love letter, or more accurately, a pretend love letter. Clients sometimes leave them for apprentices just to feel important. The note is brief and clumsy. Your eyes are lanterns in my endless night. You stifle a laugh. You've heard better lines from drunk poets reciting to house cats. Still, you're expected to respond, and so you go to the perfumed letter room. It's a quiet space tucked behind the main parlor, filled with brushes, inkstones, and drawers packed with folded paper in a dozen pastel shades. Some sheets are edged in gold, others carry pressed flowers or delicate ink stamps of flying cranes and weeping willows. But the most important item in the room isn't the ink or the brush, it's the scent. Each courtesan has her own perfume signature, not the kind sprayed from bottles, but crafted from sachets, dried herbs, and scented wood chips burned gently in the corners of drawers. Yours is still being decided. You're trying out a blend of dried yuzu peel and crushed violet. It's not memorable, but it's soft and lingers just long enough to make someone wonder what they're smelling. You select a pale green sheet, trim the edge with the golden scissors, and carefully grind your ink. Your handwriting is still inconsistent, so you trace a few characters before committing. The note must be flirtatious but distant, intriguing but not revealing, like offering someone a spoonful of soup and taking it away just before they taste it. You write, "If my eyes are lanterns, then let them flicker." But remember, even paper burns. You fold the sheet into a crane and seal it with a wax stamp, a fan, the mark of your house. Then you dust it with a pinch of your scent sachet. One letter, one breath of illusion sent off into the world. In this world, communication is theater. The letters are part of the dance. And scent? That's the unspoken dialogue. Clients who know the game can identify a courtesan's perfume blindfolded. Some hoard the letters like sacred relics, rereading them in secret, smelling the creases as if trying to conjure the sender. There are even stories, probably exaggerated, about letters that never reach their recipient being buried with their writers. One tale says a courtesan's spirit haunted the district until her final letter was burned with her ashes. Whether it's true or not, The girls whisper it like gospel. You return to your room, hands still stained faintly with ink, and find another surprise waiting. A bundle of old letters from retired courtesans. They're used as study material. You're to analyze them for structure, emotion, and balance. One begins, I dreamed of your voice last night. It told me to turn away, but I followed it anyway. Now look where I am. Another reads, your coin paid for my time, your words paid for my silence. You read for hours, eyes half-lidded, absorbing the way emotions are shaped and softened to fit between lines. You're beginning to understand that everything here, everything, is a coded language. Later that evening, as you pass the outer hall, you overhear two clients talking. One mentions the courtesan Shizu, who once scented her letters with burned cherry bark. He claims he still has one, though the scent's almost gone. That was over 10 years ago, the other says, laughing. She still answers in my dreams, he replies. You wonder what that must feel like, to haunt someone, not with anger or sorrow, but with a memory too beautiful to let go. But not all letters are beautiful. Some carry desperation, others hide warnings. One girl, barely older than you, accidentally mixed the wrong herb into a perfume sachet. The client broke out in hives. She was reprimanded, of course, but the real punishment was subtler. Her scent privileges revoked. Now she's forbidden to write scented letters at all. In Yoshiwara, that's like silencing your voice. There's also talk of hidden messages in the folds, brushstrokes that only appear when warmed by a lamp, or coded meanings in the way the paper is creased. Some believe the courtesans were spies, using romantic notes to pass information. Scholars debate it, as scholars love to do. Some dismiss it as fantasy. Others point to records of intercepted letters and redacted poems. One historian even claimed to have found a letter with an ink made from crushed moth wings, visible only under moonlight. Whether it's true or not, the myth has power, and in this world, power often hides in myth. The next day, you're given a challenge. Compose a full reply to a letter from a high-ranking client. It's part of your training. The client doesn't exist. It's a test. You read the sample letter. It's cloying and overconfident. You smiled at me as if I mattered. I need to know if it was real. You pause, fingers hovering over the brush. What is real in this place? You answer simply, if I smiled, it was for the moonlight. But if you saw yourself in it, take what comfort you will. The instructor reads it and nods slowly. You'll do, she says. You want to feel proud. Instead, you feel a strange emptiness. Writing these notes, performing this illusion, it's like sculpting fog. It feels beautiful, but your hands stay empty. That night, you smell smoke from a brazier and see an older courtesan burning her own letters one by one. They curl and blacken like fallen butterflies. You ask her why. She shrugs. They weren't mine. They were never really for me. The next morning, a new letter waits on your tray. This one isn't from a client. It's from the matron, and it simply reads, your first performance is scheduled. 3 days. Your breath catches. It's happening. Your debut, your real one, hair dressed high, face painted white, obi tied in the formal rear knot. And your own name, your courtesan name, spoken aloud to a crowd for the first time, you will bow. You will serve tea. You will laugh on cue. And afterward, you may receive your first real request. You'll be expected to handle it with grace, to remember your lines, your timing, your scent, and above all, to keep the fantasy intact. Because from now on, your words aren't just words. They're perfume, and paper, and smoke, and they linger long after you're gone. You don't sleep well. The night before your debut arrives with all the weight of a festival drum thudding behind your ribs. You lie awake staring at the ceiling, your palms clammy against the straw mat. The room feels too small, too silent. Outside, the house hums with soft preparations, shuffling footsteps, doors gliding open, the clink of porcelain cups being polished to mirror perfection. Tomorrow, everything changes. You sit up and watch the lantern sway faintly in the breeze. The smell of rice powder drifts in from the hallway, mixed with clove smoke and that strange bitter scent you now recognize as the herbal paste some of the older girls use for monthly irregularities. You've come to associate that scent with whispered worry and long sleepless nights. Another girl left the house last week, supposedly to visit a relative. No one believes that. Her things were gone by morning. Her room is already being cleaned out for a new apprentice. You shake the thought away. Tomorrow's about you. At dawn, they begin preparing you. The senior dresser arrives with a team. You're not allowed to move once they begin. They comb and oil your hair until it glistens, then start crafting it into the formal oiran style, a structure so elaborate it feels like they're building scaffolding on your skull. The pins are long, heavy, and cold. You try not to wince when they slide one through your top knot. Then comes the makeup. A thick layer of white is brushed over your face, neck, and down the nape, leaving that traditional W-shaped gap at the back to suggest modesty while offering just enough temptation. Your lips are painted in a stylized red bow, small and perfect. Just the lower lip for now. You're still a junior. Full lips are for higher-ranking courtesans. You look in the mirror and don't see yourself. You see a mask, a beautiful one, a necessary one, and then the obi. It takes nearly an hour to wrap and tie it properly. The weight pulls at your spine, forcing you into posture. You don't walk in this outfit, you float, or at least you try to. Every step is a balance between grace and gravity. The moment you step out into the reception hall, it begins. Music plays softly from behind a screen, shamisen, gentle and haunting. The room smells of incense and lacquered wood. Clients sit cross-legged on silk cushions, sipping tea and pretending not to stare. You recognize none of them, though you suspect some have been watching you for weeks. The matron announces your name, not your real one, your courtesan name, the one chosen for you, meant to sound elegant and ephemeral. Something like Asayuki, morning snow. You bow. The room bows back, and then you serve tea. Your hands barely tremble. You smile the way you were taught. Just enough to seem warm, not enough to seem eager. Your voice when you speak is softer than usual and a little deeper. Courtesans often altered their tones to seem more mature, more mysterious. The conversation dances around you. One man praises your tea, another compliments your sleeve embroidery, a third recites a poem. Something about snow falling on a lake. You nod politely, pretending you haven't heard the same poem 3 times this week. And then he arrives. The client, the one who requested you after seeing you in the garden last week. He was watching from the other side of the wall. You hadn't even noticed, but apparently he noticed everything. He's older, with a neat beard, and a silk robe that smells faintly of plum wine. He sits a little too close, his smile too wide. His voice is like polished gravel. He asks your name even though he already knows it. You tell him anyway. He compliments your perfume. You smile. It's a new blend. Violet and citrus. A bold mix, he says. Like you, I think. You laugh softly, the way you practiced. Then he asks you to pour for him. You do. He places a coin on the tray. It's not a payment. It's a signal. Request. You're first. You bow. Not too low, not too fast. Everything in this world is a measured step. The matron steps in and takes over the conversation. You're dismissed. Gently, like a cloud retreating behind a mountain. Back in your room, you sit motionless for a long time. Then you begin preparing the sachet. Every courtesan has a small chest, wooden lacquered with drawers for scents, brushes, and secrets. You open yours and begin mixing. Violet petals, dried and crushed. Yuzu peel, shaved fine. A pinch of camphor for clarity. And a secret ingredient, powdered cedar charcoal. Not enough to stain, just enough to anchor the scent. You fold the mixture into a thin pouch, tie it with gold thread, and tuck it into your robe sleeve. But you're not done. You reach beneath the drawer and pull out a small paper scroll. The recipe isn't written, but you've memorized it from overhearing the older girls. It's not perfume, it's prevention. The shadow blend, they call it. Made from powdered mugwort, bitter melon seed, and dried persimmon stem. Supposedly taken with hot tea after a client visit, it keeps things from taking root, as they say. Some girls swear by it, others say it's just superstition. Either way, no one asks the matron for it. You make it yourself, quietly, carefully. You fold the blend into wax paper and hide it under your pillow. Some scholars today argue over whether these methods had any real medicinal effect. Folk tradition, they scoff, no scientific basis. Others point out that these women, in the absence of formal medicine, created their own pharmacopoeia, testing, adjusting, learning from one another, a network of knowledge passed down not through textbooks, but through whispers and tea rituals. The door slides open. A senior maid gestures. The client is waiting. You nod. The room is quiet as you prepare. Your hair is redressed, your robe straightened. You slip the scent sachet into your sleeve and press the wax-wrapped bundle of herbs into your obi, just in case. As you rise, your reflection catches in the mirror. Your face is calm. Your eyes are sharp. You no longer look like the girl who arrived here months ago. You look like someone who knows exactly what kind of story she's telling and exactly what she's hiding behind the smile. Outside, the lamps glow softly. The air smells like incense and snow. And somewhere behind one of those paper screens, the life you didn't choose waits. You don't remember every detail. That's what they always say. It blurs. And it does. The first time a client chooses you is not about fireworks. It's not even about pleasure. It's about silence, timing, knowing when to breathe and when to pretend you don't need to. And the moment passes like smoke, strange, slow, and oddly distant. You remember the scent of his robe more than his words, plum wine and old cedar. You remember how his hands moved, slow, unsure, not cruel but not kind either. You remember thinking how odd it was that someone could pay so much and still look so lonely. You remember the ache in your legs from kneeling too long, the weight of the obi pressing against your spine, the way the air felt heavier when you returned to your room. But mostly you remember the tea, not the kind you served him, the kind you drank afterward, carefully, silently, alone. You slid the door shut, lit the brazier, and heated a small cup of water. You unwrapped the waxed packet from beneath your pillow. The herbs were dark and bitter-smelling, clumping slightly from humidity. You poured them in, stirred with a chopstick, and drank while it was still too hot, because that's what they said you had to do. Drink it quickly. Don't let it cool. Don't let yourself think about why. The taste was awful, like chewing on regret. You sat there afterward, cradling the empty cup, watching the steam fade into nothing. It's strange how quiet the world can feel, even in a house with 20 women, a matron who rarely sleeps, and clients coming and going like tides. That night, it felt like you were the only person alive in Yoshiwara. Somewhere down the hall, you heard a muffled cough, a laugh, the soft thud of a footstep. Life went on. The house never stopped, and neither could you. The next morning, you awoke before dawn and made your way to the midwife's chamber. Not because something was wrong, but because you needed to know that it wasn't. The midwife wasn't old, but her face had the weight of someone who'd seen too much. Her room smelled of dried mint and crushed chrysanthemum. She didn't ask many questions. She didn't smile. She just gestured for you to lie on the padded mat and lifted your robe with practiced detachment. Any pain? She asked. You shook your head. She nodded once, checked your pulse, asked about your last cycle, and made a faint noise in her throat. You're fine. Come back if anything changes. That was it. No warmth, no comfort, just assessment. Still, you felt something like relief. A pebble lifted from your chest. Not the boulder, but enough to breathe. On your way back, you passed another girl waiting outside the midwife's door. She was hugging herself, eyes red-rimmed. She didn't speak. You didn't either. Some things don't need words. By midday, you were back in your training routine. Tea ceremony, calligraphy, posture practice. You held your fan with a little more confidence. Your bow dipped exactly the right amount. The matron gave you a glance. Hard to read, but not disapproving. That was the closest she ever came to praise. Later that afternoon, one of the senior girls sat beside you while threading silk through her hair. He wasn't so bad, was he? She asked without looking up. You blinked. How did you? She smirked. Please, we all knew. The house always knows. You didn't reply. You didn't need to. She leaned closer. Next time, try eating salted plum before. Helps with the nerves. You nodded, storing the tip like treasure. She paused, then added, "And if you ever get the fever afterward, the kind that makes your bones feel like they're made of wet wood, go straight to the midwife. Don't wait. I had a friend who did. She didn't last the month." You swallowed hard. Was it? No one knows. Could have been anything. Infection, curse, heartbreak, who can say? You both laughed, but the sound didn't reach your eyes. That night, you found yourself staring at the moon again. It was full, bright, round, and too perfect. The older girls say the full moon makes men more reckless. The clients drink more, request more, touch more. The house gets louder, the shadows get longer, and pregnancies, well, they say they spike too. Some midwives still swear by the lunar calendar. They tell girls to avoid clients during certain phases, to drink protective teas on the waxing crescent, to pray at midnight during the waning gibbous. It's all superstition, of course, but in Yoshiwara, superstition is just survival in prettier clothing. The next morning, you found a bundle of herbs by your pillow. No note, just tied with a simple red thread. You knew what it was, a quiet offering, a shared secret. You tucked it into your drawer beside the scent sachets. You'd never find out who left it, but the message was clear. We're watching out for you now. There's a kind of sisterhood in the house that no one talks about. You share hair oil, pain remedies, whispered warnings. You learn which clients to avoid, which ones like to pull too hard on your OB, which ones lie about being sterile. You learn who gets jealous, who will protect you, who's good with makeup, who can forge a doctor's note. You also learn to keep your voice soft, your gaze lowered, and your secrets buried. Historians often debate the relationship between courtesans in these houses. Were they friends, rivals, prisoners forced to coexist? The answer, of course, is yes, all of it. Friendship under pressure doesn't always look like affection. Sometimes it looks like quietly replacing someone's cracked tea bowl before the matron notices. Sometimes it looks like sliding a sachet under a pillow without a word. Some scholars even believe the women developed a coded sign language, small gestures with the fan, subtle movements of the hand. Nothing written down, nothing spoken aloud, just quiet warnings passed like breath. If it's true, you haven't learned it yet, but you're watching, listening, waiting. One evening, a girl named Hana returns from a visit with a high-profile client. She's pale, shaking, lips tight. You help her undress. You notice the bruises, delicate but unmistakable. She doesn't cry. She just whispers, "He said I reminded him of someone he lost." You say nothing, just brush her hair in silence until she sleeps. The next morning, she's gone. The official word is that she was promoted, moved to a finer house in another district. But her things are still here. Her comb, her shoes, her scent. Everyone smells it. No one mentions it. The matron replaces her with a girl who can barely walk and get a sandals. The cycle begins again. And you keep going. You serve tea. You write letters. You perform poems with the right pauses and the right sadness in your voice. You count the days, not for escape, but for safety, because in Yoshiwara, pregnancy isn't just a mistake. It's a risk, a secret, a story told only in whispers, in folded paper, in the bitter taste of herbs taken too late. And always, always it begins the same way, with a breath held too long, a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes, and a client who thinks he owns a piece of you, just because he paid the price. Some men come to Yoshiwara looking for fantasy. Others come looking for something they lost years ago, maybe in a different city, a different life. And then there are the ones who don't even know what they're looking for. They just want to be seen, to be admired, to feel important for a few hours. That's what you're trained to give them, not love, not affection, not even comfort, just the illusion. But sometimes, just sometimes, that illusion gets messy. It begins with the poet. That's not his real profession. You're pretty sure he owns warehouses in the docklands and makes his money taxing other men's sweat. But he writes poetry in the margins of shipping ledgers. He recites it like it matters. And he watches you like he's waiting for a line you haven't spoken yet. He's not your first client, not even your favorite. But he's the first one who makes you pause. He brings you plums from his garden. He laughs at your worst jokes. He asks how your day was, not in the bored way clients usually do, but like he actually wants to know. He doesn't touch you at first. He doesn't ask for anything except tea and words. And you start writing better poems. That's when it gets dangerous. Because when a courtesan starts feeling seen, when she starts responding to the gaze instead of merely surviving under it, that's when the line between performance and reality starts to slip. One evening, he brings you a book, a real one, bound in silk with a poem handwritten on the inside cover. I dreamed of you in crimson robes. You turned and did not smile. Still, I followed. You fold the book into your sleeve and say thank you. But something in your voice cracks slightly. He notices. Of course he notices. The house notices too. The matron calls you in the next morning. Her face is carved from stone, but her eyes are sharp. You're getting too comfortable, she says. You say nothing. He's getting too attached. Still, you say nothing. She leans in. There are 3 kinds of courtesans who get removed from this house. The ones who get sick, the ones who get pregnant, and the ones who fall in love. You nod. She watches you for a long moment. Be smarter. You bow. Not because you agree, but because it's the only safe answer. After that, you try to distance yourself. You laugh a little too loudly at other men's jokes. You stop writing poems between visits. You leave his gifts untouched on the lacquer table. But it's already in motion. He begins requesting you more often. He leaves larger coins. He asks questions like, do you ever think of leaving this place? And what would you do if you were free? And worst of all, he starts using your real name, the one you never told him, the one only the matron and the midwife still say aloud. You ask around. One of the newer girls says she heard him bribing a clerk for old house records. You can't confirm it, but it feels true. You confront him, gently, with grace, in the middle of a tea ceremony. You smile as you speak, because you have to. This name you use, you say softly, it doesn't belong here. He smiles back. It belongs to you. That's exactly why it's dangerous. He sets down his cup. I'll take you away. You don't laugh. You want to. Instead, you pour more tea. Then what would I be, you ask? A memory, a mistake, a scandal? He reaches for your hand, and for a moment you let him touch it. Just once. Just long enough for the fantasy to feel real. Then you pull away. That night, you double the herbs in your tea, not because you think you're in danger, but because it's easier to prepare than to hope. Some scholars today argue whether courtesans truly fell in love with clients. Some say it was impossible. Too much control, too much performance. Others point to poems, letters, even suicides as evidence that love did sometimes slip through the cracks. There's the famous tale of Suki Nohana, a courtesan who vanished into the night with her patron, only for him to die a month later in a duel. She returned to the district in mourning robes and was never seen entertaining again. Some say the matron let her stay out of pity. Others say she cursed the house. But you? You know the truth is never that clean. One of the older girls finds you crying behind the water screen the next morning. You hadn't meant to. It just happened. She doesn't say anything, just hands you a folded cloth soaked in camphor and peppermint oil. It clears your sinuses and stings your eyes. The smell burns away the softness. Keep it moving, she whispers, or it'll swallow you whole. That night, you don't see the poet, but you hear his footsteps in the outer corridor. You hear the matron's voice, low and calm, and then nothing. You never see him again. A week later, a rumor circulates that he's been blacklisted from the district. No one confirms it. No one denies it. His name disappears like incense smoke. In his place, a new client appears, younger, rougher. He brings gifts but no words. He doesn't ask questions. He treats you like a meal already paid for. And somehow that's easier. You return to routine. Poetry, tea, perfume, control. You serve, you smile, you survive. But every now and then, in the folds of a new letter, you smell a trace of something that doesn't belong. Plum wine and old cedar. You burn those letters, not because you're angry, but because in this world, nostalgia is just another kind of wound. You whisper a new poem into the steam of your evening tea. A name once spoken turns to ash. A gaze once held now burns. Let love be lost behind the screen, where no one ever learns. And then you sleep. Not well, but enough, because tomorrow someone else will arrive and you will greet him like nothing ever happened. Because that's what you do. Because you are no longer just a girl with a name. You are the fantasy, and fantasies don't cry. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you always knew it might happen. You just hoped it wouldn't be so soon, or so quiet. It starts with a scent, one that shouldn't be there, a faint iron note, barely covered by rice powder and floral perfume. It lingers in the hallway outside the bathing room. No one mentions it, but every girl who passes slows down, nostrils flaring slightly, eyes narrowing before walking on in silence. Later, the matron makes an announcement, her voice clipped. There will be a reorganization of rooms this evening. Kindly assist your sisters. She doesn't say whose room or why, but everyone knows. Yui is gone. She was the youngest apprentice, still practicing her fan angles, still stumbling over calligraphy, always humming under her breath when the matron wasn't around. She had just been assigned her first perfume blend, cinnamon bark and sweet orange. The scent still clings to her bedding. She never made it to debut, and now her room is being swept, her robe folded neatly into a box, her name removed from the scroll outside her door. They say she caught a fever, that she was taken to a doctor's house across the city, but her sandals are still beside her door. Her inkstone is still wet, and the blood? That tells its own story. No one cries, not here, the house doesn't allow it. Instead, the older girls carry on as if nothing happened. They walk the halls in silence, their movements too smooth, too rehearsed, like dolls gliding through an invisible performance. But you see it, the extra pinch of rouge on their cheeks, the slightly louder laughter at a client's joke. It's not for show, it's armor. You help pack Yui's things. You find a folded piece of paper tucked inside her ink brush case. It's not a letter, just a scribbled list of herbs. Some crossed out, some underlined. Mugwort lotus, seed cinnamon angelica root, motherwort circled. Your stomach sinks. She was trying to learn what you were only just beginning to understand yourself. That knowledge was power in this house, quiet, whispered, bitter-tasting power. And sometimes, not enough. You slip the paper into your sleeve. You burn it later, when no one's watching. That night, you kneel before the small household shrine, more out of routine than belief. You light a stick of incense, bow your head, and whisper Yui's name once. Just once. That's all it takes to make it real. Then you blow out the flame. You don't expect ghosts, but you feel something colder than usual in the corridor that night. Maybe it's just the wind, or maybe it's the weight of everything left unsaid. The next morning, the midwife arrives early. She walks with her usual limp, her basket creaking with every step. She doesn't look anyone in the eye. The matron nods once, and the door to the examination room slides open. You're called in third. The room smells stronger than usual, eucalyptus and boiling vinegar. She doesn't speak until you're lying down, robe open at the waist, her fingers pressed to your belly with that clinical detachment you've come to expect. You regular? Yes. No changes? You shake your head. She watches you for a beat longer than necessary. You're careful? As careful as I can be. She nods and turns away. You'll be fine. And then softer. For now. You dress in silence and leave without a word. Out in the hallway, another girl waits. Her face is unreadable. You pass each other like ghosts. That afternoon, while folding hand towels in the laundry room, you finally break your silence. Did anyone see her leave? The girl beside you pauses, hands still. Number. The matron said she left during the night. You both know that's not true. I heard she'd been bleeding for days, someone mutters. Didn't tell anyone until it was too late. No, says another. I think she did tell someone. I think they ignored her. No one speaks after that, just the sound of towels being folded. The occasional sniffle someone pretends is dust in the air. That night, the oiran named Mariko visits your room. She rarely speaks to apprentices. She's too high-ranking, too busy. But tonight she kneels beside your futon like an older sister. She smells of sandalwood and tobacco. Her voice is rougher than usual. "She was asking questions," she says. You blink. "Yui?" Mariko nods. "About the remedies, about the roots, about timing. She was just trying to stay safe." "She was trying to stay alive," Mariko corrects. "Some girls do everything right and still." She doesn't finish. Instead, she pulls a small cloth bundle from her sleeve and places it in your hand. "Take this, in case you ever can't find what you need." You unwrap it later, 4 carefully tied sachets, labeled in tiny brush script: red clover, dong quai, wild yam, black cohosh, old world ingredients. Some you've only heard about, a few you've tried, none guaranteed, but all better than silence. There's an unofficial network in the district, a chain of courtesans who pass knowledge in fragments, recipes, ratios, symptoms, remedies. It's not organized, it's not formal, but it exists, like a current running under the still surface of the house. Some scholars believe these women created their own gynecological system, distinct from the male-dominated herbal medicine of the era, based on observation, not theory, on survival, not prestige. Some dismiss it, others say it was centuries ahead of its time. You believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. What you know is this: the midwife doesn't share everything. The matron certainly doesn't. And when things go wrong, it's not the doctors who suffer, it's girls like Yui. The rest of the week passes in a fog. Clients come and go. You pour tea, recite poems, adjust your perfume. You pretend nothing's changed. You learn to smile through the weight in your chest. But when no one's watching, you study the herbs. You memorize the signs. You count the days with sharper precision. You refuse to be caught off guard. And you watch the new apprentice, barely 13, practicing her bow in the courtyard. You watch her stumble, blush, try again. You want to warn her, but you don't. You're not ready to carry someone else's fear on top of your own, not yet. Later that night, you find a new note tucked into your pillowcase. It's not scented, not folded with care, just a scrap of rough paper with a single line. She asked the wrong person. You read it 5 times before burning it, and you sleep with your hand on the sachets. Because in this house, safety isn't something you're given, it's something you carry with you. And sometimes something you hide in your sleeve. There's something almost spiritual about the baths, not the steamy kind you might imagine, with rose petals and soft music. No, these are ritualistic, deliberate, a kind of sacred theater. Here, the water doesn't just wash the body, it washes the day, the suspicion, the rumors that cling like wet silk after a storm. It's early evening, and you're kneeling by the deep wooden tub, steam curling up from the hot, spring-fed water like incense. The matron has instructed a reputation rinse for several of the girls, yourself included. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because word has started to buzz again. Little murmurs about that client who kept using your real name, about how long you were gone with him, about what your face looked like when you came back. Too much visibility is dangerous. Too much invisibility is even worse. So here you are, wrapped in a towel, waiting your turn, while the water crackles and the scent of citrus peels drifts from the pot beside the bath. Someone's added ground mandarin rind and a few drops of camellia oil. It smells like winter trying to be spring. The ritual begins. The first girl steps in, slow and composed. She kneels in the center, pours 3 scoops of water over her shoulders, and recites a cleansing phrase. Then she scrubs, gently but thoroughly, neck, wrists, behind the knees. Always the same pattern, always in silence. When it's your turn, you follow suit. The water is hotter than expected, but you don't flinch. You lift the ladle. Pour once, twice, 3 times. Then the phrase, "Let today be gone. Let tomorrow be unseen." It sounds like poetry, but it's really a kind of plea. Not to be forgotten, but to be unburdened. To walk into the next day without dragging yesterday's whispers behind you like a torn sleeve. The other girls watch you, not judgmentally, not exactly, but with a kind of wary curiosity. Who will stumble? Who will forget the steps? Who will try to fake it and end up looking foolish? You don't. You finish the ritual, step out, and dry off slowly, carefully. You take your time tying your robe, adjusting the collar just right. Because tonight isn't just about bathing. It's about resetting the image, refreshing the mask, and maybe about scrubbing away what won't come out. They say water in Yoshiwara is different, that it holds things, secrets, ghosts, desires, that every girl who kneels in the bath leaves behind something, if not blood, then memory, if not guilt, then the trace of a name she no longer wants. One of the older girls, Tomo, says she knew a courtesan who bathed every night after seeing a client, not because she was dirty, but because she was afraid his scent would linger in her dreams. Better to sleep alone than to wake up haunted, she said. Another girl claims that one of the most famous oiran centuries ago bathed in sake and chrysanthemum petals before her performances. She believed it made her irresistible. Some scholars dismiss this as folklore. Others argue it was likely symbolic. Chrysanthemum for purity, sake for strength. Still others insist she did it to hide the smell of the medicine she drank. Some strong, bitter concoction to keep her from bearing any child that might ruin her price. You think about that as you wrap your towel tighter and move to the dressing room. There, attendants wait to repaint your face. Not fully, just touch-ups. Enough to re-establish the illusion. Rouge for the cheeks. Powder to smooth out signs of fatigue. A fresh dab of scent at your pulse points. Violet yuzu. And a whisper of clove tonight. You look tired, one whispers. I am, you say. She nods, then pauses. They're saying you're next in line. For what? The private party. You blink. I thought Mariko was handling that one. She's sick, or pretending to be. You know what that means. A client too rough, a favor she can't refuse, or a secret she needs to keep quiet. So she vanishes for a few days, leaves someone else to pick up the threads. Lucky you. You don't protest. You can't. Instead, you rehearse your poetry on the way down the corridor. Tonight's client is a minor noble, wealthy, married, and, most importantly, connected. Entertaining him well could mean a generous tip. Entertaining him too well could mean a patronage offer, or a ruined reputation. You're not told what he wants. That's part of the game. You enter the room with the proper bow, gliding across the floor in your formal kimono, obi tied tight in the rear knot. You serve tea. You offer a folded note with a seasonal poem. You laugh when he stumbles over his words. He asks questions. You answer only some, and then he leans closer. His hand brushes yours, and you flinch. Barely, just enough to register. He pauses. Apologies, he says. You smile. No harm done. But later, in the corridor, your hand still tingles, and not in a good way. You retreat to your room and open your medicine drawer. You prepare the tea, just in case. Later, during evening prayer, you see the midwife again. She's lighting a candle at the household shrine, muttering under her breath. You wait until she finishes before stepping closer. I think one of the new girls is ill, you whisper. She nods slowly. I know, but the matron wants it quiet. Shouldn't she rest? She will, once her client leaves tomorrow. You feel something cold settle in your throat. You go to the girl's room. She's curled under her blanket, shivering, eyes glassy. You offer her some peppermint water and sit beside her until she falls asleep. You leave a small pouch of herbs by her pillow. Back in your room, you watch the candlelight flicker. You think about the bath again, the way the water clung to your skin, the way the phrase echoed, "Let tomorrow be unseen." You wonder how many girls have whispered that prayer and meant it in ways the matron would never approve of. You wonder how many ever got what they wished for. And you wonder if the real ritual isn't the bath or the prayer, but the act of surviving another day without letting it show. Not in the usual way, where the pins dig into your scalp like a row of silent complaints, but deeper, like your skull is trying to reject the weight of everything it's been forced to carry. You sit on your knees in front of the bronze mirror while the dresser hums and secures another silver pin into your already too tight top knot. Your neck aches, your back is screaming, and your smile, as always, is painted on. The silence in the dressing room feels heavier than usual. Maybe it's the weather. Rain has started to fall outside. Light, almost gentle. It taps against the paper windows like someone too polite to knock properly. But in here, that sound might as well be thunder. Everyone hears it, but no one acknowledges it. One girl to your left, Naoko, winces slightly as she leans forward. Her sleeve shifts just enough for you to catch a glimpse of something dark along her shoulder blade. A bruise, long and narrow, the kind that might have come from a sudden grab, or from being shoved just a little too hard against a wall. You pretend you didn't see it. She pretends she doesn't notice your glance. This is the silent code of the house. See it. Don't name it. Just adjust. The dresser gives your shoulder a soft tap, signaling she's done. You rise carefully, the full weight of your hair and costume shifting across your body like a second skeleton. It takes effort now, not just grace, to move like you're weightless, and you're starting to understand why the older girls walk like floating ghosts was not out of elegance, but necessity. Down the corridor, the matron calls your name, not your birth name, not your courtesan name even, just a sound sharp enough to snap you out of your thoughts. You follow her voice to the reception room, where a group of new clients has arrived, men from the north, dressed in stiff traveling robes, carrying the scent of wet dust and pipe smoke. They're loud, but not yet drunk. Two of them ogle you openly. One pretends not to notice you at all, which of course means he's watching the most. You do what's expected. You kneel, you pour, you recite a haiku about spring rain and falling petals. One of them applauds, which is awkward because you didn't pause for applause. You laugh it off with a slight bow. Such posture, one says, voice thick with sake already, like a willow in the wind. Or a doll, the other chimes in, a perfect little porcelain thing. You're not sure which comment is worse, but you smile just the same. They ask questions. Some you answer, some you sidestep with a gentle shift of your fan or a practiced glance to the side. What do you think about love? One asks, his teeth stained slightly from too much pickled plum. I think love, you say slowly, is like incense. How so? Beautiful while it burns, but it always fades. That earns a satisfied laugh, not because they understand, but because it sounds poetic enough to pass. After they leave, louder than before, laughing too hard, you return to your room. You peel off the wig first, letting your real hair fall like rain across your shoulders. The relief is instant, like stepping out of someone else's dream. Then you remove the makeup. The white powder clings to your skin in places, refusing to let go without a fight. You scrub gently with a cloth soaked in rice water and mint oil. Beneath the mask is a face you barely recognize anymore. Not because it's changed, but because it's been hidden for so long. You pause at the mirror, eyes meeting your reflection. You're still young, but your eyes aren't. Later that evening, you find Naoko behind the screen in the laundry room, soaking a stained collar in vinegar. You sit beside her in silence. After a while, you ask softly, "Who was it?" She doesn't look up. "The client from Kyoto. The one with the fan collection." You remember him, too quiet, too controlling. His compliments always came like threats dressed in silk. "Did you tell the matron?" "She said I must have provoked him." You clench your jaw. "You didn't." She shrugs. "That's not the point." You help her rinse the fabric. The water turns pink. She glances at you. "You ever think about leaving?" You nod. "Every day." "Think you will?" "Depends." "On what?" "If I can still run when the time comes." She doesn't laugh, but she smiles, and that's enough. Sometime later, one of the younger girls, Harry, rushes in, face pale. "The midwife wants you," she says. "For me?" you ask. Irie shakes her head. "Number for Mariko." You run. The midwife's chamber is dim, lit by a single lantern and the faint glow of coals under the brazier. Mariko lies on the mat, eyes closed, face wet with sweat. She's trembling. Her robe is soaked through. The midwife doesn't look up. She waited too long. What happened? She knew she was late. She thought it was stress. Thought she could handle it. You kneel beside her. Is she... She's not bleeding yet, but it's close. You've heard the stories. You've seen what happens when the remedies don't work. When the body decides to betray even the most careful plans. The midwife hands you a pouch. Boil this. Mint, ginger, mugwort, cramp bark. Make her drink it all. You do. Mariko groans, barely conscious. You press a damp cloth to her forehead and whisper whatever useless words come to mind. Later, as the night deepens and the room quiets, the midwife leans over and whispers, She'll live. You don't cry, but your body slumps like a marionette with snapped strings. She's lucky, the midwife adds. No, you say softly. She's careful, and still it wasn't enough. The midwife sighs. It never is. That night you can't sleep. You sit in your room, a fresh sachet clutched in your hands. You don't light a candle. You don't write a poem. You just sit, listening to the rain. It taps against the roof like it's trying to wash something away. But some things don't wash off. Not with bathwater, not with rain, not even with time. You think about the bruise on Naoko's back, about the heat in Mariko's forehead, about the ache under your own ribs that hasn't left for weeks. And you wonder, how many other girls are hiding their wounds behind rouge and rice powder? How many are smiling with teeth clenched so tightly they leave bite marks on their own tongues? You reach for your ink brush. You write 3 words on a piece of scrap paper. Still, I remain. You fold it once, slip it into the drawer beside your tea herbs, and finally let your eyes close, because tomorrow you'll need your strength, and maybe, just maybe, one more chance to run. The house wakes before the sun, like always. You, however, are already up, not by discipline, not by duty, but because your body refuses rest. Your dreams have been restless lately, if you could even call them dreams. They're more like collages, fragments, the flash of a bruised shoulder, the sound of water pouring in the bath, a name spoken in your real voice. Always your real voice. It rings out in your sleep like someone calling from another life. And when you open your eyes, it's gone. You sit by the low window, watching the faint blue of morning seep into the sky. You're holding a comb but not using it, just staring at it, the way a swordless samurai might stare at an empty scabbard. There's a knock. Not on the door, on the window frame, a soft, quick tap. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm you know well. It's a signal. You open the paper screen just enough to let the note fall in. It's tied with a green thread. That means it's from Tomo. You unfold the paper, careful not to smudge the ink. He's asking for you again, tonight. You don't need to ask who he is, the man who made promises with poetry. The man who used your real name, the man the house supposedly banned. Apparently coins speak louder than rules. You crumple the note and drop it into the brazier. The paper shrivels into ash, curling like a dying insect. You had been hoping it would never come to this, but Yoshiwara is not a place that forgets, only one that pretends. Later that morning during fan practice, you stumble. Your grip slips. The instructor clicks his tongue and shakes his head. Focus, he says. You bow, not an apology, in surrender. He doesn't notice the tremble in your hands. Or maybe he does and chooses not to. After class, Naoko slips beside you in the hallway. I heard, she says softly. Of course you did. Are you going? Do I have a choice? She doesn't answer, just reaches into her sleeve and presses something into your hand. A sachet, not perfume this time, medicine, something stronger than what you usually use, wrapped in black silk, meant for emergencies. I had 2 of them, she says. I hope you only ever need one. You nod, grip tightening around the packet. That night comes quickly, too quickly. The house is oddly quiet, as if it knows, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. You're dressed in your most formal attire. Your face is painted with such precision that even your reflection doesn't flinch. Your perfume tonight is jasmine and smoke, sharp, memorable. You wait in the reception room until the matron appears. Her face is unreadable. He paid double, she says. I didn't ask. He still used your name. I won't answer to it. She raises an eyebrow, then shrugs. Just remember who you are in that room. You nod. I'm no one. Good girl. The client arrives late. He's dressed richly but carelessly, a robe too fine for someone who wears it like a coat thrown over a chair. His eyes light up when he sees you. I was afraid you wouldn't come. I didn't, you say. She did. You lead him into the private chamber. It's smaller than you remember, warmer. You wonder if that's by design, to make you feel smaller, softer, easier to hold. He sits across from you, fingers tracing the rim of his teacup. I missed you, he says, I'm sure. I dreamed of you. That wasn't me, just a shadow. He laughs, low and tired, still so poetic. You say nothing. He reaches for your hand. You don't move. You let him touch it, briefly, then withdraw it. I'm not who you think I am. he says. No one here is. He leans in, the tea between you forgotten. His breath smells of plum and desperation. You could leave. With me, right now. You smile, not the soft kind, the one you've learned to wear like armor. And be what? A secret? A scandal? A story you'll stop telling once I lose my shine? He looks wounded. That's not fair. No, you say, but it's true. There's silence then. Real silence, the kind that lingers. He doesn't ask for anything else, not that night. Maybe because he knows he's already lost something, or maybe because he understands finally that you're not a poem. You're a fortress with painted walls. When he leaves, he doesn't look back. You wait 10 full minutes before standing. Your hands are shaking. You don't use the sachet Naoko gave you. You unwrap it slowly, empty it into your palm, then gently pour it into the fire. You don't need it tonight, but you needed to know it was there. In the following days, the house returns to normal, or at least the version of normal Yoshiwara allows. The girls practice their routines. The clients come and go like drifting fog, and the matron, for reasons she never explains, moves you to a different schedule. Fewer clients, fewer poems, more silence. You fill the time with letters, dozens of them. Not love letters, not flirtations, but fragments of thought, half-finished poems, secrets written in invisible ink. You sent them with dried orange peel and tucked them into the cracks behind your mirror, into the hems of your old robes, between the pages of discarded books. Some you burn, some you hide, some you think might survive you. The house is full of hidden letters. That's something you've only just realized. Slips of paper tucked into floorboards or behind wall panels or under loose stones in the courtyard. Messages from girls long gone. Messages never read. One afternoon, while sweeping near the well, you find one, folded so small it looks like a cherry blossom petal. You open it with trembling fingers. Tell her I stayed. Tell her I smiled. Tell her I never stopped listening. No name, no date, but you fold it back the way you found it and tuck it into your sleeve. That night, you write your own message. We're still here. And place it under the threshold of your door. Because someone will need it someday. And because even if no one remembers your name, they'll remember the silence you filled. You're no longer the newest girl in the house. A strange, bittersweet milestone. One that arrives not with celebration, but with observation. You notice it one morning as you're tying your robe and a girl you've never seen before knocks awkwardly on the doorframe, bowing too deeply, her sleeves uneven. She can't be more than 12. Her eyes dart around the hallway like a cornered animal's, and when she meets your gaze, she bows again, lower this time, nearly falling over. Her name is Emmy, she barely speaks, and somehow that makes you want to protect her even more. You're assigned to train her, nothing formal, just help with etiquette and tea routines. The matron calls it passing on the foundation, but you know the truth. It's a test. They want to see if you can guide someone through the performance without letting them know it's a trap. The first time you sit with her in the courtyard, she's too nervous to meet your eyes. She stares down at her knees, which are raw from bowing practice. You offer her a rice ball wrapped in pickled shiso leaf, your favorite kind. She blinks. I didn't think we were allowed snacks. You shrug. We're not. But sometimes rules need to forget they exist. Her mouth twitches into what might be a smile. Later, while showing her how to hold the fan properly, you notice her hands tremble. Don't lock your fingers, you say. Let it feel like part of your breath. The fan is a whisper, not a command. She tries again, fails, blushes. You hand her your practice fan. It's worn smooth at the edges, with inked sakura petals almost rubbed away. Use this, you say. Mine's already told too many stories. Maybe it'll help you start yours. She clutches it like a lifeline. You see yourself in her, how you once looked, once trembled, once thought that poise was the same thing as power. It isn't. Not really. A few nights later, you find yourself summoned for a special gathering. A seasonal poetry night hosted by a visiting noble family. High expectations, high visibility. The kind of event that could make or break reputations. The house is tense all day. Wigs are brushed until they gleam like obsidian. Robes are chosen with the precision of war generals. You're given your assignment: perform a poem, serve 2 guests, and maintain conversation for exactly 30 minutes, not a second more. The matron insists on it. Before the guests arrive, you kneel in front of your mirror. The dresser applies the final touches to your face. You ask her to make the lip a little fuller tonight, just enough to suggest maturity. "Are you nervous?" she asks. "No," you say, but the truth is, you're always nervous. You step into the reception hall like you're stepping onto stage, each movement rehearsed, to look unrehearsed. You feel the eyes on you immediately, some curious, some calculating, a few already drunk. You find your assigned guests. One is young, the son of a provincial governor. He's polite but clearly uncomfortable. The other is older, smooth-voiced, with fingers that linger too long when you hand him tea. You give them your practice poem. In plum blossom dusk, even shadows ache with grace. Soft, the fan closes. They applaud politely. You respond with a bow. The older man asks if the poem was your own. You lie and say yes. He compliments your elegance, your restraint. Then he leans in. "Would you consider traveling with me for the summer?" Your fingers tighten slightly on your fan, just enough that you feel the wood flex. You smile. "Travel makes shadows of memories. I'm not ready to forget this place just yet." It's a deflection. It works, mostly. The event ends without incident. No bruises, no raised voices, no invitations you can't refuse. In Yoshiwara, that counts as a victory. As you leave the hall, you pass a junior girl, vomiting quietly into a garden basin. Too much incense, too much pressure. Or maybe something deeper. You help her to her room. Afterward, you return to your own and remove your makeup slowly, ritualistically. The cloth comes away, streaked with red and white. Your face beneath is calm, but your hands won't stop shaking. That night, Emmy knocks softly on your door. You let her in without a word. She sits cross-legged on the floor and pulls out a folded sheet of paper. "I wrote something," she says. "Can I read it?" You nod. She opens the page with careful fingers. "In a house of fans, I learned to hold my breath still, so no one could hear." You close your eyes. Then you reach for her hand. She lets you hold it. No one speaks. Outside, the wind picks up. The paper screens rattle softly, like someone whispering your name from another world. The following morning, the midwife arrives again, this time with a basket of dried herbs, more than usual. The matron doesn't look at her, just waves her toward the examination room. 2 girls go in. One comes out crying. You don't ask. You don't need to. Instead, you meet Tomo in the garden. She's tending the morning glories, clipping wilted blooms with small, precise snips. She doesn't look up. "She's going to be fine," she says. You sit beside her. "For now," you reply. Tomo hands you a small bundle, wrapped in soft green cloth, tied with a white thread. "What's this?" "Insurance." You open it slowly. Inside, crushed blue cohosh, angelica root, tiny slices of dried ginger, carefully measured. "Only if absolutely necessary," she says. You nod, then pause. "How many of us are carrying these now?" "All of us," she says without hesitation. You nod again. Later, while walking back to your room, you pass the room where the crying girl had been. The door is closed now, quiet, but the scent that lingers isn't incense, it's fear. You recognize it, you've worn it, and you know it'll come for you again. Maybe not tonight, maybe not this month, but eventually. Yoshiwara is a machine. It paints girls into dreams, and sometimes those dreams rot from the inside out. But still, you remain. Because someone has to remember the names, even the ones that no longer get spoken, even the ones whispered into the hems of old robes or scribbled in the margins of makeup cloths. Because someone has to pass on the stories. And because you've decided, if this is the role they wrote for you, you'll rewrite it, fan in hand. Poems hidden in your sleeves, and a name no one else gets to use. Not anymore. By now your body moves without thought. Each gesture, each syllable, every half smile and precisely lowered gaze, they all arrive on cue, like actors stepping out from behind a curtain. You've become so fluent in this silent language that you sometimes wonder what your real voice even sounds like. But tonight is different. Tonight there's an energy in the house, a tension under the floorboards, a restlessness in the air. You notice it in the way the matron glances around corners a little too often, in how the midwife keeps her satchel closer to her side, in how 2 girls are missing from dinner, with no explanation and no one asking out loud. Something's shifting, and you don't like it. You've learned to trust your gut. It's rarely wrong. After the meal, the matron pulls you aside. Her lips are painted carefully, but you can tell she's been chewing them underneath. Her voice is low. You're needed in the back room. One of the regulars brought a guest. High-ranking, foreign. That last word lands like a drop tray. Foreign clients are rare and always complicated. Some don't speak the language. Some treat the women like novelties. Some carry strange expectations, and the house only accepts them if they're wealthy enough to make it worth the risk. You nod once, hiding your hesitation behind a fan you're not even holding. The back room is already warm with incense, thicker than usual, cloying like they're trying to mask something or someone. You step in and see him, tall, dark coat, faintly graying at the temples, Western clothes, Western posture, but his Japanese is fluent, tinged with the practiced politeness of someone who has studied, not inherited, the culture. The man beside him, a government official you recognize, introduces him as a friend of the empire. That's all he says. That's all he needs to say. You kneel and bow. The foreigner smiles, not leering, not rude, but there's something unreadable in his expression, as if he's measuring you for more than beauty. They ask for tea. You serve. The official does most of the talking, explaining traditions, narrating the poetry printed on the scroll behind you, interpreting your silences as part of the charm. The foreigner watches quietly, occasionally asking you a direct question. Do you choose your own name? He asks at one point. You hesitate. It's chosen for us, but we grow into it. And if you grow out of it? You smile. Then we begin again. He seems to like that. Later, he asks if you'll perform a dance. You don't say no. You never say no, not to a guest of this rank. You rise, unwrap your fan, and move to the center of the room. The music starts, soft shamisen from behind the wall. You close your eyes briefly, center your breath, and begin. Your movements are slow, deliberate, every step telling a story. A girl lost in the forest, a blossom falling into the river, a dream that fades before it finishes. You don't think, you feel, letting the fabric and the music and the flickering candlelight guide you. When it's over, there's silence, then a polite clap. The foreigner bows slightly. Exquisite, he says. The official chuckles. They're all like this here. It's why they stay so expensive. You sit again, smile politely, and offer more tea. The night ends without incident, but afterward, as you walk back to your room, your steps feel heavier. Something about the man's gaze lingers, not lustful, not cruel, but as if he saw something you hadn't meant to reveal. When you reach your door, you find a folded letter waiting, scented, expensive paper, no mark, inside a single line. What would you become if no one was watching? No name, no signature, but the handwriting is unfamiliar. The scent, not yours, not any of the girls. You burn it immediately, but the words don't leave you. A few days later, you hear whispering in the garden. 2 of the newer girls. One says she overheard a conversation, that the house might be inspected, that someone, possibly the foreigner, asked too many questions, took too many notes. You've heard this before, and you know what happens when suspicion takes root. Rooms get rearranged, midwives vanish, and girls are told they've been reassigned when really they're being removed. Quietly, without explanation, you go to Tamo. She already knows. I have 3 names memorized, she says. 3 safe houses, 1 for pregnancy, 1 for illness, 1 for escape. Escape? Her eyes meet yours. Sometimes it's the only option. You sit with her in silence. She reaches into her sleeve and pulls out a scrap of paper, not folded neatly, folded fast. A list, she says. Places, people, codes. You glance over it quickly. Temples, tea houses, a woman named Okami, who hides girls in her sake shop. "This is real?" you whisper. "It's the only thing that is." She hands it to you. Memorize. Burn. Don't tell anyone you have it. You do. Later that night, you walk to the bathhouse, not because you need a bath, but because you need to think. The steam rises around you like fog. You kneel at the edge of the tub and stare into the surface. Your reflection wavers, splits, comes back together. You whisper your birth name, just once, just to hear how it sounds. You haven't used it in years. You barely recognize it, but it still fits. Somewhere beneath the layers of powder and practice, the name still fits. You remember something an older courtesan once said, long before she vanished. You can be a mask for a long time, but if you wear it too well, you start forgetting where your skin ends. You reach into your robe, pull out your fan, and place it gently beside the water. Then you take the sachet from your drawer, now it goes emergency one, and wrap it again tighter like a talisman. Because whatever's coming next, you'll need more than posture and poems. You'll need truth. And truth here is the most dangerous thing of all. The rain doesn't let up for days. It starts as a soft patter, like rice falling on a roof, and slowly builds until the entire world feels soaked in gray. The paper windows darken, the floorboards stay damp, no matter how often the servants wipe them. Even your robe smells of mildew, like the air itself is trying to rot you from the inside out. Yoshiwara in the rain is different. It quiets the streets, muffles the music, drowns out the laughter. The clients come less frequently, some too delicate to step through puddles, others simply preferring a different kind of warmth. But inside the house, the pressure builds. There are fewer men to entertain, fewer smiles to fake, fewer places to hide, which means the matron is watching. She always watches more closely when business slows. She sharpens her gaze the way others sharpen knives. This morning she calls a meeting. All courtesans. No apprentices. That's never a good sign. You sit on the floor of the main chamber, legs tucked neatly beneath you, back straight despite the ache. Around you the other girls sit like painted statues. Serene, unreadable. You recognize the signs, the whispered tension, the tightened shoulders, the extra blush on cheeks that don't feel rosy anymore. The matron stands at the front, hands folded. "There has been a rumor," she says. "Someone is talking to people outside the house." Silence. You keep your expression neutral, your breath steady. "The inspector came by last week," she continues. "He asked about the missing girls, the ones we said left for marriage or illness." Still no one speaks. But he asked by name. Your stomach turns, but you don't move. She paces slowly, her voice calm, too calm. "I don't care who it was," she says, "but if I find out, there will be consequences." She stops walking, turns her head. "Some of you seem to have forgotten that what we do here isn't just for pleasure. It's a privilege, a craft, a history." A few girls nod as they've been trained to. Do not insult the house by thinking your secrets are more important than its reputation. And just like that, the meeting ends. No accusations, no punishments, not yet. But the message is clear. The house is hunting. You return to your room and find something waiting. You write nothing in return. No farewell, no warning, no apology. This kind of departure can't be confessed, only survived. You memorize the house's rhythm. Who sweeps when? Which boards creak the most? Which servants yawn at which bell? You walk the route in your mind again and again from your room, past the second laundry door, through the side corridor, behind the storage crates, down the narrow steps near the kitchen firewood bins. It leads to a wooden gate that's supposed to stay barred after sundown. Supposed to, but you've seen how the bolt hangs loose now, how someone has been oiling it. 3 nights from now. You repeat it like a prayer. The first night is uneventful. You serve a minor lord who forgets your name halfway through the tea ceremony. He calls you by another courtesan's name twice. When you gently correct him, he waves it off. "Same difference," he says. You excuse yourself as soon as protocol allows. Back in your room, you lie awake listening to the rain again. It hasn't stopped. You wonder if it ever will. The second night is worse. Emmy is crying. You find her in the laundry room, curled behind the water basin, hands shaking. "He touched me," she whispers. "The one with the fan tattoos. He said I owed him my silence." Your breath tightens. You kneel beside her, pull her into your arms. She doesn't sob. She shivers. "I told the matron," she says, voice breaking. "She told me to be more obedient, that it would pass." Of course she did. You look down at the trembling girl, still half child, and you feel something inside you harden into iron. You press a small sachet into her hand. Drink it if you feel ill, or if your cycle doesn't come. She nods numbly. Then you say something you've never said before. "I won't be here much longer." She looks at you, eyes wide, terrified. "But what if they find out?" "They won't." And then softer. "You're stronger than you think, Emmy. I see it." She doesn't believe you, but maybe one day she will, and then the third night comes. You dress in layers so quiet even the tatami doesn't protest under your feet. You skip perfume, powder, paint. You don't want to smell like anything that belongs here. Your hair is unpinned, tied simply at the nape. Your bundle is tucked beneath your arm, wrapped in plain cloth. You wait until the second bell, then the third, a low chime that hums like a ghost across the house. You open your door, nothing stirs, you move. Through the corridor, down past the stairs, behind the crates. Your breath caught so tightly in your chest, you're surprised it hasn't shattered. You reach the gate. It's open, not wide, just a crack. Enough. You slip through, your feet splashing silently in the shallow puddles of the rear alley. Tomo is waiting. She's dressed plainly like a kitchen worker. Her hair tied beneath a kerchief. She doesn't speak, just nods. You nod back. And then you run. Not a sprint, not a panicked dash, but a careful, practiced walk. Fast, purposeful, quiet. You take turns you memorized in daylight. Past the back of the apothecary, through the shrine garden with its stone fox statues, past the bridge where the lanterns have long gone out. The city beyond the pleasure district feels foreign, wide, strange, ungoverned by the rules that kept you prisoner for so long. You pass two men drinking under an awning. They don't look twice. Tomoe guides you to a small wooden door between two shops. She knocks once, twice, then 3 fast taps. The door opens. A woman appears, older, stern, with eyes like sharpened inkstones. She steps aside. You enter. You're inside a kitchen. There are herbs hanging from the rafters. A faint smell of miso and vinegar, the warmth of a cooking fire. Somewhere someone is humming. "This is Okami," Tomoe says. "She helps girls like us." Okami nods once. "Sit. You need to eat." You sit. You eat. And for the first time in years, no one watches how you hold your chopsticks. No one cares whether your laughter is graceful. No one calls you by your courtesan name. They ask for your real one. You give it to them. And it feels like being born. You stay hidden for 2 weeks. You don't leave the house. Okami has arrangements. People bring food, clothes, news. You hear that the matron was furious, that she suspects Tomoe, that a search was ordered, but nothing came of it. That the house is quieter now. You also hear that Emmy has been assigned a new mentor, someone colder, but she's still there. Still surviving. You think of her every day. You want to write, but you don't. Instead, you take long walks through the garden behind Okami's shop. You learn how to boil roots properly, how to blend teas not just for prevention, but for healing. You listen to the stories of other girls who came before you, some broken, some defiant, all changed. You start sleeping again, not well, but deeper. And then, one afternoon, Okami hands you a bundle of folded robes. "You're ready," she says. You blink. "For what?" She shrugs. "A new place, a quiet job, a tea house in the hills. They need someone who knows poems and keeps secrets." You stare at the bundle, then back at her. "Is it safe?" "As safe as anywhere." You don't cry, you just nod, and begin to pack. Before you leave, you write a note. You fold it carefully. Do not send it. Just 6 words in ink. Your name still belongs to you. You give it to Okami. Deliver it to Emmy. If she asks who it's from, don't say. She nods. And just like that, you walk into a world without walls, without paper screens, without wigs or incense or lies painted in red lacquer. Just a path, a sky, and a name that no longer has to be whispered.